This is Making Stitches podcast, and this time we're talking socks with Christine Perry of Winwick Mum, who is celebrating 10 years of teaching people to knit socks.
There have been some really lovely things that have happened for me, like the yarn and the books and all of those things, but knowing that I have also equipped other people to be able to go and do things for themselves and actually, I'll tell you what's a really important thing I think that's come out of anybody learning how to knit socks is that it gives them a sense of confidence that then transfers into different parts of their life. And maybe that's the thing, if you learn to knit anything, as soon as we've got a new skill, it brings us a new confidence. But I know my thing is socks, and I know that if you can knit a pair of socks, then you can go and do anything. And that's just brilliant.
Hello and welcome to Making Stitches podcast. I'm Lindsay and it's so lovely to have your company today. I'm a lifelong crafter and in a previous life I was a broadcast journalist, so I love the opportunity to chat with creative people about what they do and then share their stories with you. This time I got the chance to catch up with a yarny friend of mine, someone who I met after interviewing her for Making Stitches podcast back in 2021. Christine Perry, who's also known online as Winwick Mum, set out on a mission to get people knitting socks a whole decade ago. In fact, as I record this on Saturday the 3rd of May 2025, today is the 10th birthday of Christine's Winwick Mum Sockalong, which has led to literally thousands of pairs of socks being knitted around the world. I went along to visit Christine at her home yesterday as she prepared for her milestone celebration. I felt very lucky to be chatting to her at such a significant time. It's really lovely to be here with you today, Christine, in your conservatory, talking about a very big birthday that's coming up tomorrow, in fact.
Tomorrow? Yes, that's right, yes. It's the Winwick Mum Sockalong tutorial's 10th birthday, which is absolutely amazing. I would never have imagined that I would still be doing them, teaching, helping people to knit socks 10 years later. So it's so exciting. It's so exciting to know that people still want to make them. They're still knitting them. There are always new people who want to learn, who are wanting to knit socks for themselves and other people and just get all of the lovely well-being benefits of those little tiny round circles of stitches. It's really great.
Fantastic. Now, of course, it's 10 years of the Sockalong, but you've been making socks for a lot longer than that, haven't you? Do you want to take us back to when socks first came into your life?
Well, the very first pair of socks that I knitted, I was in my teens, and my lovely Uncle Harry, who lived in Scotland, he'd just lost his wife, and she always used to make his socks for him. And because I was known to be a knitter in the family, somebody said to me, could you just make a pair of socks for him? It'll be fine. And at the time, so this would be sometime in the 80s, socks were not high on anybody's agenda, so it took quite a bit of doing to find a pattern, to find yarn that would work. And I think in the end I chose an interesting khaki colour because that was one of two choices, and I wrestled with double pointed needles and a practically incomprehensible pattern, and I was sewing things up and eventually sent this pair of socks to him and said, that's me done. Never ever am I using 4-ply or knitting socks ever again. And then somewhere way in the distance, the universe was obviously laughing very loudly because that's all I do now. And it wasn't until my youngest was a baby and I happened to be in a yarn shop buying yarn for something for her, and there were balls of this stripy yarn on the counter, and and I was looking at them, and what took my eye was that they were Kay Fassett design. It was Regia Design Line, and Kay Fassett was the designer. And before I had my girls, I used to knit for a local yarn shop. I used to make up the Rowan sample kits, and I absolutely loved the Kay Fassett boxes that the yarn shop owner would give me, and because nobody had ever told me that it was too hard or I couldn't do it, I would just launch in with all of these colours and the stitches, and they properly taught me how to be a fearless knitter. And so my eye was taken by the fact that these were K facet balls of yarn, and I'm looking at them, and the lady said, "Oh, it's sock yarn, it's just in," and I must have shuddered and gone, "Oh, absolutely no chance." And she said, "Oh, but the pattern's free." Ka-ching! So that was it then. So I left the shop with my baby yarn and my sock yarn, and this time the pattern was so much easier. And I made socks for my husband because he's not really a woolly jumper kind of guy, but I knew that he'd probably wear a pair of socks, and he was like, "Oh, these are great, these fit." So I'm like, "Oh, I'll make another pair." And then that was it then. It was you're down the rabbit hole, and then and then I started looking online for sock yarn, and oh my goodness, it opens up a whole new world, and that was it then. I was just completely drawn into knitting socks, and then over time I started to adapt the pattern so that's what worked for me, and that's the one that's now my basic 4-ply socks pattern. And it works, and I know that it works, and I know that it fits me, and I've knitted hundreds of pairs of that now, and I know that it fits other people because they've told me so. So at the every year on the Sockalong birthday, I do a fun count up just to see how many pairs of socks we might have knitted over the year, and up until last year we were on 21,336 pairs of socks. Wow. So I know that the pattern works for other people as well, and that's just lovely. If somebody is going to trust me to help them, then I need to know that it works. And so if I know that the pattern works, then I can tell them in all honesty that there's no reason why it won't work for them. And if that helps somebody in any way to start knitting socks for whatever reason they want to knit them, then that makes me very happy.
Well, it worked for me, Christine.
Your socks were brilliant.
Me. Yes, well, 3 pairs I've done, and I will be casting on tomorrow.
Excellent.
Pair number 4.
Excellent.
To mark the big birthday.
Well, I'm trying to encourage everybody to cast on a pair of socks for the big birthday, whether it's their first pair of socks, because I know lots of people have been thinking about it for a while, and never quite sure, and it might be too hard, and the worst thing that happens is that you unravel it and start again. It's not like fabric where you've cut it and then that's it, everything's ruined. You just unravel it and start again. And because we learn faster when we make mistakes, then you generally don't make the mistakes again. You might make more as you go on, but then the next sock, because you get 2 goes, don't you? Your first sock you do all of the learning, and then the second sock you generally make less mistakes. It's faster, it's easier, and suddenly you've got a pair on your feet. And I think most people will then go, "Oh, I think I'll just have another go," because there are so many choices of yarns and colours, and it's that socks have a siren call to them. I think I am very biased about this, but I think they've got a siren song all of their own. And I think once you've started, if you've enjoyed it, then you're probably never going to be in a situation where you don't knit socks again in the future at some point.
Well, there's an amazing sense of satisfaction, I think, because like you, I used to be a bit fearless in my youth about attempting anything, but socks they were never on the horizon years ago. It's something that's come very much back into fashion. It was something that was from like the 1940s or the 1950s where people would knit socks. To my mind, it was my gran and my great grandma that were the sock people. That's right. Yeah. Not so much for my generation, but it's just, as you said, just the spectrum of yarn and the self-striping. So I can honestly say, hand on heart, self-striping yarn works wonders for hiding mistakes.
It does. And it's really, really good if you're knitting a big sock as well. So my eldest daughter's boyfriend he's got big feet. He's an American football player, so he's got big chunky calves and he's got big feet, and he's a size 14. And he found that he couldn't really get socks that would fit him properly, so he used to buy bought socks and then pull them to the point where he would hear the fibres snap a little bit, and then they'd go a bit baggy, but they would fit. Whereas now he can have socks that fit him because I can accommodate his chunky calves. I can go narrower for his feet. I can make the stripes match because he likes stripy yarn. But stripy yarn is brilliant for big socks because you just think, one more stripe, one more colour, and then all of a sudden you've got your pair of size 14s and you've not really had to think about it too much. So whoever thought that self-striping yarn where the colours come out of the ball and you don't have to match anything or buy all the colours, well, that was just genius, I think.
Absolutely. And only two ends to weave in, one at the beginning and one at the end.
Exactly. And because you can use contrast colours for cuffs and toes and heels, then none of the ball is wasted. So even with a self-striping yarn, you could still use that as the contrast toes and cuffs for a different pair of socks. So it's very good in using up everything that you've got, or you can later on use all the bits and make your own stripy yarns. It's great. It makes them properly unique, and you absolutely cannot buy socks that are anything like this in any of the shops. So when people say, oh, well, why would you make these? Because you can just buy them. Well, no, you can't. You really can't. They fit the owner, and they're the colours that somebody chooses for them with love and with care, or that, you know, they know that they will particularly want, or it's to match a season or an outfit. And you know, they're just special. They're just special.
So, Christine, what was it that made you want to share the love of socks and go from just being a contented sock knitter yourself to spreading the love?
That's a really good question. I think it's because I have a background as a trainer, and so when I see something that I can do that I know other people would want to, I know that I'm able to help them do it. So I think that because I knew that I was able to knit socks, I think I'm good at breaking things down into a very basic way, so that somebody who's never done anything before, I think I'm good at explaining to them how to do it in simple steps, and with all the photographs that I had on the blog to go with the tutorials, and also because I think that I am good at writing in a way that as if we're sitting together and chatting. So I think I just wanted to put that out so that somebody who was feeling as if they wanted to try and knit socks but they didn't quite know where to start, I wanted to try and make them feel as if they could do that. They could get a cup of tea and they could read the blog, and it would feel like we were sitting having a brew and I would just show them. I think that's one of the things that lots of people don't get to experience. So there are lots of knit and natter groups around. There are lots of yarn shops now that you can go to and people will help you. And I think there are more of those. Even given the economic climate now, there are still yarn shops opening. There are still groups of people who want to get together, and it, you know, it's changing and it's growing all of the time, which is absolutely brilliant. But then there are still people who will remember their grands or their mums or their aunties knitting anything from a long time ago. Like we were saying, you know, you think about socks being in the 40s or whatever, and then they don't have somebody to sit with them and say, well, just look at that bit there, or just, you know, if we turn the needles this way, then you can say, well, look at that stitch and it looks like a V. So and I knew that because I'm such a wordy kind of person, which is why your podcast is going to be 3 hours long for this episode, and not just your normal 20 minutes. Because I'm such a wordy person, then I knew that I would be good at writing that sort of thing. And the nice thing about a blog is that there's no rush. There's you know, we don't have to fit it onto a small page. It's just all of there. So I'm not entirely sure if I've answered the question, but I've had a good go.
That'll do for me. So 10 years though is really quite remarkable to have been spreading this enthusiasm for sock knitting for a decade. I bet you didn't think you'd be doing it 10 years ago, that you'd still be celebrating the fact that so many people had joined in.
I think I've never been one of those people who has a very definite plan. So I years ago I'd go for job interviews and they'd say, so where do you see yourself in 5 years' time, and what's your career plan, and what's your goal? And I was never very good at answering that question. So for me, socks are just part of my life. They're just part of who I am and what I do. So I never had a game plan, if you like, to write them and then 10 years later I would still be doing this. I just thought they're going on the blog I knit them, and if I can help people, then that's fine. And that sounds very haphazard, I think, but that genuinely is where I came from in the beginning. I just wanted to help people knit socks, and it's been an absolute joy, really, to know that I'm still doing that all of this time later. And I think it shows how much we all need some form of crafting in our lives, and more so now, I think, because we're so busy and there's so much stress everywhere. Then I think there are so many people that realise that having yarn in their hands in whatever way it was, and one of the good things that came out of the COVID years was that people, in those first few weeks that we all thought it was a bit of a holiday and that it would go away and we'd be fine again, then they'd be, oh, well, I've got time now to start knitting, start crocheting, start doing whatever crafty thing that I might do that I thought I would never have time to do until I retired or had a big holiday. And I think now we're realising the importance of doing that. So you're right, yeah, I never thought that 10 years later I would be having a big Sockalong birthday, but flipping heck, it's fabulous. It's just amazing. And bring on 20 years, I think.
Absolutely.
That's I'm not stopping knitting socks anytime soon.
I'm glad to hear that. What have been your highlights though of the last 10 years of the Sockalong?
Well, there have been so many of them. I think I would never have imagined what it would have brought for me in terms of knowing that I'm helping people, which was always what I wanted to do, and that's why they're free as well. So that's why the pattern is free, the tutorials are free on the blog, and they always will be, because I know that the well-being that you get from that is massive. So that was always my intention, and I know that it helps people. So that, I think, really is the biggest thing. But then on the back of it all, I suppose, then I've written 3 books now that are all part of the Super Socks, the Sockalong series. I have I get to work with my favourite yarn manufacturers at West Yorkshire Spinners. I've got the Winwick Mum yarn collection, and I've been able to design with them, and they're all based on that same basic 4-ply socks pattern. So if you can do this basic Sockalong pattern, then you can do anything. And I also like that if I'm able to show somebody how to knit socks, then they can go and find somebody else's patterns. They don't just have to stick with mine. And what I like to try and do is write them in such a way that somebody can maybe go from the very first one to then try another technique, so lace or cables or something. And then when they look at them and they go, oh, but I can do this, because I know that everybody can do this, then they can go off and they can say, oh, but now I can do this pattern, or now I can design my own. So that's been amazing, because that feels like I'm able to share it, and I really like that. So there've been some really lovely things that have happened for me, like the yarn and the books and all of those things. But knowing that I have also equipped other people to be able to go and do things for themselves, and actually, I'll tell you what's a really important thing I think that's come out of anybody learning how to knit socks is that it gives them a sense of confidence that then transfers into different parts of their life. And maybe that's the thing, if you learn to knit anything, as soon as we've got a new skill, it brings us a new confidence. But I know my thing is socks, and I know that if you can knit a pair of socks, then you can go and do anything, and that's just brilliant.
Fantastic. Now, you said you were at the 21,000 mark last year. So that's 21,000 pairs of socks plus out in the wild. Where in the world are all these socks? Do you know? Are they in all 4 corners of the globe?
I think so. I know that in my Facebook group, I've got I've got 2 Facebook groups. One of them is the Winwick Mum Sockalong Facebook group for beginners just learning how to knit socks, and then the Winwick Mum Knit and Natter group, which is just general chat and all the other patterns, and that's where people can just go and have their yarn fix and all their yarny connection talk. And I know that there are people in both groups from from all around the UK, from America, from Australia, New Zealand, pretty much everywhere in between. I don't know if we've got sock knitters in the Arctic or the Antarctic. Oh, that would be fun, wouldn't it? But yeah, everywhere, which is lovely. It's been quite amazing, really, to just know that they are all over the place. And what I've also asked people to do this year, when I because this will be going out a little bit later than my blog post, so I can tell you this now. It won't be a secret then. Is that to take part in the giveaway? In fact, when this goes out, then my giveaway will still be going on, because I've got 10 days of giveaways, so we should still be within that time frame if anybody wants to join in. And I'm asking people to tell me how many pairs of socks they've knitted, which is what I always ask, but also where they are in the world, so I can put together a map so that we can all see where everybody is, because I just think that would be really exciting. And I always talk about how we're connected by yarn and intention and socks. Sometimes we just like to see it, don't we? So I thought it would be nice to ask people where they are, and then I can draw a map and I can put that on the blog so we can see too.
Oh, that's really lovely. Yes, I agree. Certainly from my point of view, when I look at where people are reading my blog or are listening to my podcast, there's that amazing thought that somebody somewhere in a far-flung corner of the world is getting some benefit out of something that you've done, and that's a lovely feeling.
It is a lovely feeling, isn't it? Once you've got past how the heck did they find it wherever they're living, but you're right, and you just think that if you brighten somebody's day in any way, in some at some point, then I think that's what it's about, isn't it?
Absolutely. So 10 years under your belt, as you said. Here's to the next 10. What kind of things have you got planned, or are you just going to get the 10th birthday out of the way first?
It's probably going to be more of the same, if I'm perfectly honest, because I really, really like helping beginners to knit socks. I don't really have any plans to stop doing that. I like doing other bits of designing as well, so I have, I'll always have other patterns out on the blog, and I'm hoping to always keep designing with West Yorkshire Spinners, but other than that, my main focus is always the beginners. I just want people to be able to get socks on their feet, and if I can help them do that, that's my job done.
My thanks to Christine for being such a lovely host and for taking the time to chat to me for Making Stitches. If you're listening to this as it goes out on May the 9th, there are still 4 days left of Christine's 10th anniversary giveaway on her blog, so please do go and check that out. You can find a link to Christine's website in the show notes for this episode. I can confirm that I did cast on my 4th pair of Winwick Mum basic socks earlier today, and I even sat working on a few rounds of ribbing as I listened back to my chat with Christine. I'll share a photo of that in the show notes on my website to prove it. Thank you too for listening. I'm thrilled to say that I've just hit a bit of a milestone myself. I've recently heard that Making Stitches podcast has been downloaded 100,000 times. Thank you to everyone who's listened to it over the past 5 years. If you love what I do and would like to support me, please share this episode with your friends. You can buy me a virtual coffee through my Ko-fi page, and I have an Etsy shop selling podcast merchandise and some of my own patterns too. That's all for this time. I'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with another creative chat for you, with someone who went from making wedding dresses to crocheting a rather large doily. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, do take care of yourself and enjoy your crafting.